All right, welcome. Welcome to the Transcendental Consciousness tape group. I'm happy that you decided to join today and take part in the tape group. And so we start with, since we're also in the 30-day period before Easter, we start with a bit of meditation first and some rebirth with Joel. And these are, say, ingredients that we use on a daily basis, on the website at least. And we have, say, 3 or 4 meetings in the week in which we meet Rebirth with Joel, where we use a part of Joel's talk and some words from the talk to come into an meditation, into a contemplation. So that's what we're going to do today too. So we start with a meditation, and the meditation is say it's born from Christ's mind. You could say that's pretty amazing. So you can have an idea. That's wonderful. You know this too. It's like you have an idea, and suddenly someone says, this idea came to me, and it apparently was exactly the same idea. Now that is exactly what happened today with Michelle and me. So I was busy preparing the meditation, and she sent in the recording in French of exactly the same part that I was working on. And so there's only one of us. Yeah, that's absolutely great. So you're included, and you're as much a part of it as you can possibly imagine. And it's like it's total. So there's literally only one of us, and that is such beautiful recognition. Great. So yeah, we see this with rebirth with Joel too. There's a moment, Joel, the Christ ministry of the still small voice. I don't know if you recognize the title of that tape. It's lovely, but it tells you also the same idea. So that was a coincidence, you could say, but it's not a coincidence, except that it's all falling into place perfectly. So that's our second part, and then later on we will listen to Joel in the Transcendental Consciousness tape, which was actually a 1963 Kailua closed class, also very lovely, with the title Transcendental Consciousness. So that's the program a little bit. It's like you never know how this is going to go. The most important part is that the purpose where we say are joined in today is always the same. So we join in the one purpose to recognize the truth of who we are and abide in there. Listen and see, say, allow everything that's in the way of actually hearing the still small voice to be taken from us, to dissipate, so that our ears are opening at last and we're actually listening to Christ or the Holy Spirit speaking to us. And so that's the practice. It's one purpose where we come together. It's whatever needs to occur for that. We're ready for it. And I hope you join in that completely. And of course you do. You have no other choice, really. So starting from that, we start with the meditation, like I said. These words it's like 5 sentences. It is the text of it you will see. There's a video behind it. I will repeat that video with in between probably 5 minutes of silence. I will play the video again, and then we have some more silence, and we come to the contemplation with the rebirth of Joel and see how that all, say, fits into it. The Christ in you is very still. He looks on what he loves and knows it as himself. And thus does he rejoice at what he sees, because he knows that it is one with him and with his Father. The Christ in you is very still. The Christ in you is very still. He looks on what he loves and knows it as himself. And thus does he rejoice at what he sees, because he knows that it is one with him and with his Father. The Christ in you is very still. The Christ in you is very still. He looks on what he loves and knows it as himself. And thus does he rejoice at what he sees, because he knows that it is one with him and with his Father. The Christ in you is very still.
Le Christ en toi est très calme. Il connaît où tu vas et t'y conduit avec douceur et bénédiction tout le long du chemin. Son amour pour Dieu remplace toute la peur que tu pensais voir au-dedans de toi. Sa sainteté te montre lui-même en celui dont tu tiens la main et que tu conduis à lui. Et ce que tu vois est pareil à toi. Car qu'y a-t-il à voir, à entendre, à aimer et à suivre jusqu'à chez toi, sinon le Christ? Il t'a regardé d'abord, mais il a reconnu que tu n'étais pas complet. Alors, il a cherché ta complétude en chaque chose vivante qu'il contemple et qu'il aime. Et il le cherche encore, afin que chacun puisse t'offrir l'amour de Dieu.
Right. Thank you so much for joining in the meditation. So it's a bit different, but that's great too. Why not? So continuing now with, say, a moment of contemplation with Joel. the materials are available everywhere. So I'm heading over now to the website, EV-Hub website, to share it with you from there. So it is like we have a text there. So instead of making a sheet for it, I see here's the website. So I'm reading it from here. So this is the Christ Ministry of the Still Small Voice. And it's actually a really great part. He starts in 1962 with a Maui special class. Joel starts here right away with this talk this way. Good morning. In this 15 minutes of silence, of meditation, we have been fed spiritually fed. We have received the meat, the wine, the water of truth, the resurrection, the power of resurrection. This is all given to us in silence, in meditation. The hour of talk that comes now, and we're going to listen to a different talk, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Say the hour of talk that comes now, you might call the dessert, the sweet meat, the frosting, that which is totally unnecessary and which is just added probably to make the rest of the meal more palatable. Because the silence, the meditation is difficult, because the silence, the meditation is difficult until you attain some measure of spiritual light, of spiritual awakening. 15 minutes of silence, of meditation can be very difficult. Of course, we all enjoy the dessert, but seldom we are really fed by dessert. We are fed by the meat, by the water, by the wine, by the bread. And this is never given to us in words or thoughts. This is given to us in silence through the receptive ear. So the still small voice, like the title was the Christ Ministry of the Still Small Voice, which is everything to do with you, of course. So Joel continues here. To understand this better, you must understand the nature, the function, or the purpose of this message of the infinite way. Actually, our goal in this work is God realization, in order that we may be set free from bondage to the senses, free from bondage to the body, free from bondage to the purse, free from bondage to human relationships. Because when we attain our spiritual freedom, we can enjoy the body, we can enjoy our health, we can enjoy our purse, we can enjoy human relationships, but we are not bound by them. We are not fettered with limitations, restrictions, but this freedom is attained only through God's realization. So then it goes on, and you can listen here to that part of the talk. So we're going to listen to another talk that is actually the one for today for the tape group. Otherwise we would have listened to this, but you can listen to it on the website anyway. So it's like the loveliness of the introduction to this tape. It is like exactly what we're doing, and that's what I always love. It's like there's literally one thing going on. There's one thing going on when we come together. It's like there's one voice speaking to us, and the only thing that really matters is your ears have to be open. So that's like you wanna discover. If there's anything in the way, you want to discover what it is to let it be released, like so that you can release it and recognize truth and having sufficient, say, space in your consciousness so you can receive it. Now that is a real exercise, isn't it? And there's so much available to listen to do this, to read, and to, like, I know all about it. I know all about it. I'm spreading a lot of say, Joel information, so on the net, in whatever places, but it's not about that. And I'm very much conscious of that. Like, I'm totally conscious that it has nothing to do with the doings of putting up this information. It's like, no, that's not where it happens. That's not what it is. At the same time, it's great to use, say, the materials, or use that what is given you, what comes your way, what starts to resonate with you, to actually deepen your experience and to allow more release of, say, misidentification to go, more mesmerism to go. You say, becoming quieter in yourself. And so the Christ ministry of the still small voice is a beautiful title, is a beautiful way to look at yourself. And so the activity is in fact listening. It's not doing, it's listening. It's listening, being open, receptive. You have one moment of light and recognition, one moment of, say, feeling the communication or presence, and that will take care of it. You don't need words for that, but you do need practice for that. So coming together like this in our, say, tape group is great support, because we're actually recognizing together, yeah, we're doing this, and we need specific help. And I don't know what it is. I don't know how that works. But one way or another, when we come together, something occurs that has nothing to do with any one of us, but it say, connects us totally. Now this is an experience. This is you including yourself into this occurrence. Like the Christ ministry, you will have to include yourself into that in order to know that you were already part of it. But there's still like an action of mind that is for you to do that. Like you will have to see that you are part of it. And that inclusion is totally essential. Now, listening to the still small voice is not easy either. It's like, that's not so easy, because in fact God speaks to you continuously. Now, how many moments a day are you actually conscious of that? Exactly. So it's like maybe 99.9% of the time you miss it. You think that you need to deal with something, while actually God is speaking to you, and just you can just be still and receptive instead of thinking that you need to deal with something. And where you need to deal with will actually go quicker at the same time, will dissolve quicker, will work much more efficient than if you think that you need to do something, thinking that you can solve this in your own way, with your experience and whatever the reason is that you use, in fact, against yourself and your brother. So the practice of the still small voice is lovely, but it is a discipline. Like, it's not something that you do now and then. It's like, no, you become actually more and more aware when you don't listen. And it becomes it's like a bad alternative not to listen. Like the things that are coming your way when you don't listen are chaotic, are depressing, are, say, actually giving you an uneasiness. It doesn't feel right completely. And as a human being, coming from a human understanding, you say, have become familiar with it, even comfortable in your denial of the voice, in fact. So that's why this returning back to listening is quite a discipline. And it takes everything in that sense, because it's like, the more you're committed to listening, the easier it will be. So if you think that you have a choice in not to listen and to listen, then it's difficult, because the mind the human mind is so quick in having already an answer or having already an idea about someone before anything occurred, and so you completely miss it, who you're actually dealing with. Now this is the practice or the ministry of the Christ. Listening to the still small voice is then to be patient, is being still, literally, like not responding right away. No, just take your time. If there's a response that needs to come, it will come to you. So don't trust the immediate response that you are so familiar with, based on your ideas of what you think should happen. So you see, in the recognition of listening to that voice, you're actually, say, confirming too that you share a common source, that you share, say, that God is your source, and you share that with your brother. In your recognition of that, you actually see it at work. You see, yeah, there is only one of us. Yes, I love this practice. It's like, no, there's not an opposing will. No. If I wait, I see everything fall into place just like that, like without effort. And, well, this is quite something, because we're very familiar with effort and getting tired of all this effort. All the things that you think you have to do in order to make it work or to continue doing what you're doing. And here's the still small voice, or here's the instruction of Joel saying to you, it's like, wait a minute, take it easy, be still, listen, be still, listen. This comes to you when you are receptive, not when you're busy and your mind is full with ideas about what should happen. So in the tape that we're going to listen to, Transcendental Consciousness, with the title Transcendental Consciousness, we're actually going to the Kailua talk of 1963, and we're going to listen to the first half hour where Joel shares with us, starting with basics, coming to Transcendental Consciousness. And yeah, let's get that started. It would be lovely to listen to that. All right, so I'm sharing a screen with you again. So here we go.
Good morning.
Good morning.
In talking to you, you must understand now that I'm not giving a lecture, nor even a closed class, but I am speaking primarily to you who have been students of the Infinite Way for a long, long time. Many of you active in the practice, in the healing work, and some of you at least starting it. And therefore, I must bring to your attention the fact that you are engaged in a work that must inevitably set you apart from the rest of the people of the world. Well, it either will, or you will not get too far in your spiritual development. Because you are not engaged in the study of a teaching so much as you are beginning to attain the fruitage of your search for truth. If you think back a few years in your experience, try to remember what it was that brought you into this particular message, the infinite way. Whether it was primarily for a healing or some other aspect of greater humanhood, better humanhood, or whether it was an actual desire, search, reaching out for reality, for truth, for God. Also, if, when you came into this work some years ago, your main idea was healing or human improvement, whether or not your attitude has changed since then, whether or not you realize that merely improving your health or the amount of your supply is insignificant in comparison with the idea of actually finding the secret of life that is behind the appearance, behind what you see, hear, taste, touch, and smell. If you can realize, or if you have realized by now, that there is a great secret behind this world, a secret unknown to any of the religions, unknown to any of the philosophies, unknown to any man whose breath is in his nostril, a secret of life that no man can know with his mind. Would make no difference what he studies or where he goes to study. This secret he will never discover. That is why so few have entered in. In the ages up to the present, most people have sought and expected of religions human betterment, and probably a promise for something great after they die. Because the future is feared by most people. I mean, the future, the time beyond this immediate life, what is called after death. Most people look to that experience with horror, with fear, with dread, and with good reason, because most of the religions have presented that period as a period of punishment, as a period of getting the punishments that you did not receive here on earth, and with the vague hope that at some far distant time there might be a heaven. And even the nature of heaven as it is described, by now you know that if you attained that, it would be hell. By now you must have discovered that there's nothing more monotonous than sitting and playing a harp all day and being happy. But the teachings of the world have not gone beyond seeking truth through the mind, seeking truth through books, seeking truth through teachings, and of course, until you arrive at that place in consciousness where you realize that you never are going to find the truth, you haven't even begun your journey. Your journey, your spiritual journey, only begins when you come to the realization that going on as you have been going, you never are going to learn the truth, the secret behind this universe, because it is not to be known with the mind or through the mind. While it is true that you do not know what the word spirit means, nevertheless, God is spirit. And that in itself means that God is something that you do not know or understand. And since you have been searching almost a lifetime, it must get to be discouraging. And it is discouraging, because inevitably that realization does come. I never am going to discover God or spirit. And my search is frustrating. And what have I to look forward to? When you reach that point, you may be starting on your spiritual journey, because you will have reached that place where you can say, "Speak, Lord, thy servant heareth," and mean it. And really mean it, that if you do not speak, and if I do not hear what you say, there is going to be no answer. When you reach that place, it actually means that you have come to the end of faith and hope and belief that the human mind is ever going to reveal spiritual truth to you. And in one of our classes many years ago, we had that for a title: "Abandon hope, all ye who enter here." Abandon hope of finding God, all you who enter this class, because in this class you will not find him. In this message you will not find him. And the reason is that the kingdom of God is within you. Now, at this point in consciousness where you are, where I am speaking to you, you do know that God is not going to be revealed to you in the words that I speak or the words that you hear. The only opportunity of God being revealed to you in our relationship is in what my consciousness can impart and your consciousness can receive, independent of words and thoughts. In other words, there must be a relationship between us that transcends words and thoughts. There must be a state of consciousness that can receive that which an attained spiritual consciousness can impart. The teacher can impart it without words or thoughts, but as a rule will use the means of words and thoughts and let the spirit in between do the actual imparting, that is, carry the import of the message. Now, I'm leading up to that for this reason. I knew when Thunder of Silence was published that I could not expect many people in the world to understand it or grasp it, not even our students. And I didn't expect it. I still don't expect it for many, many, many years to come. And the reason is that from the very start of it, the message it gives contradicts the entire teaching of Christianity. It's a complete contradiction of all that is to be found in Christianity. Because every Christian teaching is based on God's goodness to you and God's punishment to the sinner. And probably some of you have lived long enough to find out that God has not been too good to you. And probably some of you have discovered that God doesn't really punish the bad sinners at all. They seem to go scot-free. Once in a while, one of them gets caught up with the law and gets sent to jail, but God doesn't seem to have anything to do with that. It's the police department. As a thinker, this must puzzle you. As a thinker, you must be startled by realizing how many sweet, loving, wonderful, good, charitable people there are in the world whom God is not rewarding. And it must amaze you at the amount of evil people there are in the world that not only the law hasn't reached yet, but even God hasn't put his finger on. And as a thinker, you must ponder this. You must. You have to give time and effort and thought to this and wonder about it, and then wonder if maybe the church's explanation is a valid one, that if you don't get punished here, don't worry, you'll get punished somewhere else. Not that anyone has come back to prove their point, that there is a hell or a limbo or any other place where you get punished afterward. I don't even know that the spiritualists have ever had messages from the other side saying that there's a very hot fire anywhere to burn you up. Haven't heard of any such messages. And so it is that the longer you seek the answer with your mind, the more frustrating this is going to be. And if you do not have an answer to it, you may be assured that not only your frustration in life will continue, but the solution to life's problem will not be given you. It is for this reason that those who were present when that first unfoldment came through my lips witnessed the fact that what came through my lips was not anything that I had known even 5 minutes before. It was something that came through and startled me as much as it did any of those who were listening who caught it. And be assured, I had to do a great deal of thinking and meditating after that message came through to realize the astounding nature of what it was. And I even said afterward, I hope there were no reporters present, because if that message that had come through were reported in the papers, I'm sure the churches would have done to me what they did to some of the ancient revelators. Because that day, the message that came through said, God neither punishes nor rewards. And you search the literature of the world and see what a startling message that is. How it refutes the religious teachings of most of the world and all of the Western world. Since God neither punishes nor rewards, and remember, I'm always now on the book Thunder of Silence, since God neither punishes nor rewards, and since, as we have found, there is a certain amount of punishment and reward that goes on in this world, what is the answer? And the answer that came through was that what the Hindus call karmic law is the answer. That which Jesus called, as ye sow, so shall ye reap. And you see, whether you quote the Orient or whether you quote Jesus, you throw all Christian teachings out the window. Because if it is as ye sow that ye reap, then it has nothing to do with God on either the punishment side or the reward side. It has to do with a law that you set in motion. And when we go to Brother Paul, we find him receiving that same revelation from the Christ. If you sow to the Spirit, you reap life everlasting. If you sow to the flesh, you reap corruption. So here we have it in the basic Christian teaching, as ye sow, so shall ye reap, and please leave God out of it. Unfortunately, the basic Christian teaching was not incorporated into the Christian church. It is for this reason that Dr. Jung was able to write that he had never had a case of a person over 35 years of age who had been healed through his ministry without a return to basic religion, but not the religion of the churches. Nor had he ever had a failure of healing in a person over 35 years of age that could not be traced to the fact that they would not return to a basic religious teaching. But he emphasized not a teaching of the churches. Now, why does he make that distinction? Because the teaching that he gave to the world in his later years came to him through a revelation. The teaching in the earlier years came through his medical studies. But in the later years, he had a spiritual revelation. And then he discovered that a return to basic religion, and he said any of the basic religious teachings, Oriental or Occidental, as long as you remained with the original teachings of the original revelators. And of course, here is one of the reasons that through revelation, through revelation you learn the nature of God. And then you will discover when you know the nature of God, that there is nothing in that nature that either punishes or rewards. Let us for a moment think of God as life, the life of the universe, the life, let us say, of all nature, as well as our own lives. And since God is from everlasting to everlasting, the nature of God must be eternity, infinity. There could be nothing in the nature of God that would shorten the life of man or the universe. Therefore, the life of man must be eternal and immortal. Well, right here, of course, you have no punishment, because all of our sins and diseases and deaths are supposed to be due to punishments. All our accidents, all of the evils that befall us are supposed to be due to punishment of one nature. God's will, it is called. God's will that an airplane collapse with 100 people on board. God's will that a steamship burn up at sea or hit an iceberg. But do you not see that that was not in the original teaching of Jesus Christ? Do you not see, if you go back to the Gospels, that you cannot find God that destroys life for any reason, since Jesus' mission was to raise the dead, and his mission was to do the works of God, show forth eternal life. It was to heal the sick, even to forgive sinners. So God could not have provided a punishment for sinners and forgiveness at the same time. Therefore, if you go back to the basic teaching of Jesus Christ, you will discover that there is no punishment through God and no reward through God, and that it is as you sow that you reap. And of course, when you go to the Oriental teachings where they have karma, you will also discover that it is your sowing that results in your reaping, and the reaping goes on until the sowing changes. Now, if you can catch solidly, firmly, this revelation in Thunder of Silence, and actually bear witness to the fact, come to a conviction within yourself that you can leave God right out of your calculations, leave God right out of your thinking right now, insofar as your rewards and punishments are concerned, or insofar as your health or sickness is concerned, or your life and death. Leave God out for a moment and see if we cannot grasp this principle, that it is as ye sow that ye reap. And then make the acknowledgement, regardless of where I am in life, regardless of what experience I may now be having, somewhere or other there is a sowing in my consciousness that is responsible for a reaping. And let's see if we can't find it. If we can grasp this teaching of the infinite way, we're halfway home. Because if you are still seeking around in your mind, hoping for a God to do something or change something, you are still back in orthodoxy. You're still waiting for that which is not going to happen. Whatever is going to happen is going to happen as an activity of your consciousness. Now, of course, in a half hour, I am covering a subject that you could not possibly resolve in your consciousness within a year or two. You would have to take this half hour of work and spend a year or two, if you haven't already, until you do come to the full realization of the nature, of the startling nature of what I'm saying to you, that at this moment doesn't seem startling to you at all. The only reason it doesn't is because you haven't grasped it. Then, when you reach that, the rest is going to be easy, because I will tell you a secret of something that is operating in the back of your consciousness unnecessarily and causing you distress. There is still a belief in your thought that some act of commission or omission on your part is responsible for your discords or inharmonies. And there again, that is where the church has led you completely astray, because the church is 100% in error in telling you that any sin of yours is responsible for the woes that you may have experienced or may be experiencing or ever think you may experience. Be assured it isn't that way at all, and you might just as well forgive yourself right now and forget about your past sins or present ones of commission or omission. Drop out of your thought right now that it was any error of yours. Remember, when I speak this way now, I am telling you what you must be holding in thought about your patients and students. Do not forget that I'm not speaking primarily to you who already have come a great part of the way along this path. I am reminding you of what you must be revealing to your patients and students in order to free them from their guilt complexes and from the belief that they should be expecting a reward for the good things they've done in life, or punishment for the bad things that they may have done, or the good things they left undone. You have got to set them free. You perhaps have been, in a great measure, already set free by your studies and work. But remember, I am merely giving this to you so that you may complete your demonstration, and that you may have the full awareness of dealing with those who come to you. Now, what is the sowing and the reaping that is causing the distresses of the people on earth? Well, Paul summed it up, and we will have to do what he probably did that never got into print. We will have to explain it. He merely stated it. To those around him, he may have explained it, but it never was printed. If you sow to the Spirit, you will reap life everlasting. If you sow to the flesh, you will reap corruption. That's the statement. And the explanation is this. You were born into a material sense of life. Therefore, you have been sowing to the flesh all of your human life. In other words, you have put your entire hope, faith, confidence in form or effect. We have been brought up naturally to believe that money was supply. And it is this teaching that really causes all of the lack and limitation on earth. Because whether you believe that money is supply or crops, it's equally an error. Consciousness is supply, spirit is supply, the invisible is supply. That over which you have no control, but that which can, when you permit it, control you, govern you, fulfill you. Now, to believe for a moment that money, investments, securities, jobs, professions, businesses, just to be born into the belief that this is supply, makes you go out to get these, and thereby cheats you of the demonstration of supply, because these aren't supply. When you go far enough in the message of the infinite way, you will discover that I am supply. That I embody and embrace within me the infinity of supply. Not only for my own use, I could feed 5,000. Because I is God. Now deny that I am supply. I am the bread, the meat, the wine, the water. I am the resurrection. I am life eternal. I can give you water. Drinking it, you will never thirst again. I am the bread of life. And until you actually accept that, you are going to be sowing to the flesh. And you're going to reap limitation. Oh, there are people that reap $1 million worth of limitation and $10 million worth of limitation. But it's limitation, and the proof of it is that after they get it, sometimes they can't eat 25 cents worth of food, and sometimes they can't spend any of it. They have to sit and just watch it and count it and multiply it. And they can no more part with it than they could part with their blood. Do you see that? Because we all know that money in and of itself can't spend itself. It takes the spirit of a man to part with it, to share it, to give it, to distribute it. The money itself will not do that. Therefore, just to be born into an ordinary family means to be born into limitation, into the struggle to earn a living, into strife. Whereas, to be born into a family of spiritual understanding, a child would be brought up right from the beginning, sowing to the Spirit, realizing that love is supply, life is supply, God is supply, I am supply, and that child would grow up with such a different concept of supply that it would never work for it, or struggle for it, or lie for it, or cheat for it. But whatever activity it undertook And do not forget, some would be artists, and some would be doctors, and some would be lawyers, and some would be designers and builders and all the rest of this. They would be doing it for the joy of life. They would be doing it as a gift of God, a grace of God. Because it really makes no difference what work you're doing in life. The moment you're not doing it for a living, it becomes a joy. When you're doing it for a living, you can't help watching the clock and wondering whether you're giving more than you're getting. The moment that you do not connect supply with your living, then your activity, your work, your art, your business, your profession becomes such a joy that you're giving yourself to it, you are sowing to the Spirit. And supply then may come through that avenue, and it may come through many, many others. Now, in the same way, in having been born into an ordinary religious family, what really were the first words we heard? We didn't hear them with our ears, but they went into our consciousness. The first words after we came out of the mother's womb: be careful, don't drop the baby, don't get the baby in a draft, don't. And from that second on, you can be assured we were sowing to the flesh. We were watching the body, we were watching drafts, we were watching cold feet, we were watching germs, we were doing something that made us apprehensive of the body. And almost the first thing a youngster learns when they go to school is don't talk to strangers, it might be a kidnapper. There's only one kidnapper in 100 million people, but it might be a kidnapper. And so a fear of kidnappers goes into every child, whereas only 1 in 10 million ever meets one. Do you see how we sow to the flesh? Instead of being taught from the beginning, these people are your brothers and sisters. These are children of God. Oh, no. No. There might be a kidnapper. And even if not, they don't belong to your church. And that makes it bad. And they don't belong to your race or your religion. And that makes it bad. Or your nation. And that makes it bad. Do you not see what I mean by sowing to the flesh, you reap corruption? It has nothing to do with your personal sins. Your personal sins and mine. Never let me omit mine. They are due to the fact that we were born into this sowing to the flesh. Therefore, this became a pleasure of the flesh, and this became a pain of the flesh. This became desirable to the flesh, and this became undesirable to the flesh. And all we've done is cater to the flesh. And now what of the Spirit? Well, now, whoever heard of that? Whoever heard of the invisible Spirit that is in us, which is the Spirit of God in man? Whoever directed our attention to the Spirit of God in our neighbor? Or to the Spirit of God in the sinner? Whoever directed our attention to the fact that not only the saints, but all the sinners have the same Spirit of God in them? And only our ignorance of this truth brings upon us the discords of the flesh, even the diseases. If it wasn't so ingrained in us to fear weather and fear climate and fear germs and fear infection, we really wouldn't have half the things that are wrong with us. So it isn't our personal sins. It is that which we have personally accepted of the universal belief through our ignorance. Ignorance is our major sin. That's why in one of the most joyous books I've ever read in the world, some of our saints approach heaven and they're shocked to see some of the world's sinners up there. And they want an explanation of it. And God has to say to them, sin? Sin? There's only one sin. Ignorance. Anything else, you can come in here. We have thieves up here. We have adulterers up here. We have everything. There's only one sin, and that's ignorance. And the ignorant can't get in, even though they were saints on earth. Well, that's a burlesque, but it's a burlesque of the truth. Only the ignorant remain out of heaven or harmony.
So, yeah, this say 1.5 hour of meeting is already coming to an end. So I just want to give you a heads up for next week. There will be the Easter moment. It's Easter Day, or Day of Resurrection. And so I planned that still as an open meeting. So it's like that will be like an Easter celebration, but it's also a tape group meeting. And that is also the last meeting that we're going to have in the Transcendental Consciousness tape group. And so now you can ask, okay, so what happens after that then? Are we still meeting? And the answer is yes. Yes, we're meeting. And we're actually using a book. I don't know if you can read it, but it says, "The world is new." So I thought that was a great book to take a look at. And it is the book, "The World is New" of Joel Goldsmith. We're going to use this, but we're not going to read it or anything. Now, I know that there are like hardly any tapes related directly to this book, which I really love, because this book is actually written by Joel. And so then there are tapes with the same subjects, and I love to use those as a way to come to a tape group meeting, and use the book as well. So I don't know if you have the book, but so it will be available. It's like you can order it on the website. You can order it, of course, at Acropolis Books or joelgoldsmith.com, or on Amazon. You can find it. And the book we're using parts of it, just like we have done in the past too, is like using parts of it just for specific subjects, for giving our tapes a focus, you could say, because there will be tapes coming up. So this is one thing. But that is not next week, that is the week after that. But I just want to already tell you that is coming up, and you will receive an invitation for that this week, so that you know what's going on and how we can continue. Because you see, it's like you see that the only thing that's in the way is ignorance. And Joel says this also in the tape. It's like, yeah, the only thing that's in the way to actually know that you're in heaven is ignorance. It's like you can't enter the kingdom with ignorance. Now, to discover that for yourself, it's impossible. You really cannot correct yourself. So that's why we say die daily, and we need moments of rebirth. Otherwise, it would be impossible. There has to be a release of self-identity. And Joel shares this with us, and I will, it's like in every meeting that I say conduct, or I'll share the same idea, because it's in fact the release of self-identity, where actually space is in your consciousness, where you actually make some room for light and love, instead of your conceptual ideas about this world, or say sowing to the flesh instead of to the spirit. All right, so this is one thing that's occurring, and this is important. So for the continuation, we will use that. There will be like 10 meetings related to this book. So for now, thank you so much for joining in the Transcendental Consciousness tape group. And the tape you can always listen to on the YouTube channel, of course. And so thank you so much for everything. I'm really happy that you're here, that you join in this recognition of our, say, one love in wholeness, in heaven, meeting in heaven, in fact. It's like the opportunity for that is totally available. And thank you so much for everything. All right, have a wonderful rest of your day, and see you soon. Thank you so much.